Rabbi Dr. Eli Abadi. He is the senior rabbi of the Jewish Council of the Emirates, speaking to us from Dubai in the UAE. And Rabbi Abadi, thank you for joining us. Well, let's just talk about what are the issues that these organizations need to address or will be addressing in order to make Jewish life, and let's say especially observant Jewish life, as we would call it, more easier, more accessible for those in these countries.
First of all, thank you very much for having me today. The idea is that there are Jews living in the Gulf countries, in those Gulf countries. Of course, the largest community is in the UAE. The oldest community is in Bahrain. And yet we have a handful of Jews throughout the other countries. Small enough that they may not be able to offer for themselves services that any Jewish community needs and requires, or even any Jewish individual. So by all of us getting together as an association, we are going to be pulling our resources together. And in this way, we're going to help each other live a Jewish life that will fulfill all the necessary requirements that either a community or a Jewish individual needs. So first and foremost, every Jew, and every Jewish community needs and requires a spiritual leadership, a religious leadership, a pastoral care that I will be providing as the rabbi of the organization. And mind you, the other countries do not have a rabbi on premises. So I will be first and foremost providing those services, religious guidance, spiritual guidance, pastoral care, and of course, giving classes, shiurim, lectures, so we will nourish their intellectual and their spiritual side of the communities and also of every individual. In addition to that, I will be providing life milestones, life events that require also religious leadership, and that is a brit milah, a bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, a wedding, and unfortunately also gittin, divorces, which I will be providing to all those countries and all those Jews and communities that exist. Now, in addition to that, as you mentioned, we are incorporating and establishing a Arabian kosher certification agency, which will certify kosher food to become available to all the Jews in the region, from certifying kosher restaurants to kosher supermarkets and establishments, to hotels, to events, and by doing that, we're making sure that every Jewish local and also Jewish tourist will have the possibility and the availability of kosher food throughout the Gulf region.
Right. Now, I want to bring into this discussion Ibrahim Nanu, who is the president and association of Gulf Jewish Communities. He's the head of the Jewish community in Bahrain and a former member of the Bahraini Parliament's Shura Council, and he's speaking to us from Manama in Bahrain. And Ibrahim, Bahrain, in a sense, maybe can serve as some kind of model for these other Jewish communities, because as we have learned, you have a long-established synagogue there, a Jewish community that perhaps has been a little more higher profile, at least publicly, than some of these other communities in the Gulf.
That's good evening. Yes, that's very true. Our parents and grandparents built up an enormous amount of respect here in Bahrain with the community, the Bahraini community. And we really have a lot to teach each other in the sense on how to integrate within the Arab communities. And that is very important so that, there's harmony amongst the integration and amongst the communities. And we'd like to see that continue. So, yes, you're absolutely right. We have built up an enormous respect. And the other thing we do have is a cemetery that is used today. So, that's something we have. We have a synagogue and we have a history here in Bahrain.
Right. Now, Rabbi Abadi, we should perhaps stress this is something completely separate from the Abraham Accords. Most of these countries, in fact, don't have relations with Israel. But in the UAE, in Bahrain, you are going to see more Israeli visitors, more Jewish visitors. So will this new organization, association, be able to, in a sense, try to also integrate them when they come to perhaps in some way take part in Jewish life in the UAE or Bahrain?
Absolutely, absolutely. We will integrate them in our prayer services if they wish so, and providing kosher food and religious leadership. Of course, we will integrate all Jewish tourists from all over the world within the places that we have and within our communities.
Right.
And this is a people-to-people organization to service the local Jewish people and also the Jewish tourists that come. It's not a political association, and therefore the Abraham Accords, though very much welcomed in this region, but do not have, in a sense, a relationship with our organization. But that we do hope to service all the Jews in the region. It's a question of servicing a community of faith, and in this case would be a Jewish community of faith.
Right. And Ibrahim, what kind of impact do you think, like I said, you're well established there in Bahrain. I mean, what kind of impact do you think this sort of gathering, regional gathering, could have in perhaps developing a Jewish life in countries like Saudi Arabia or Kuwait, where, of course, it's a different situation in terms of either the Jews that live there or if even what you could call a Jewish community there?
Well, of course. I mean, one of the main things is the ability to network amongst each other. And I've got to tell you, I mean, I've seen Jewish people come over to Bahrain and avail of kosher food in the Ritz-Carlton and the Four Seasons Hotel. It's great to see that happening. And I've seen some business activity take place. So I'm really excited about all this activity taking place. And also, I mean, whatever communities exist within the Gulf region, they're all welcome here, and they're all part of the House of the Ten Commandments, which is our synagogue in Bahrain. And we're here to help each and every one of them.
Right. On a practical level, how will you be dealing or affiliating or with other Jewish organizational communities in other parts of the world now that you're going to be together as organized as a sort of regional Jewish community?
For me, that's basically another step. We're going to take things a lot slower. We're going to be looking at how to harness the activities of the communities here, how best to get the communities here, up to basically up to standard, so that they get the support that they need. And then I think it'll be a future event to decide how to go down that regional path.
Right. Rabbi Abadi, I've actually been to Dubai. I remember the times when the services there were held in a fairly small private residence for Jewish visitors. I mean, what are the plans, especially, I would say, in Dubai, where you're going to probably see certainly the most significant, because of the business community there, perhaps the most significant influx of either Jewish tourists or even expatriates coming to live there? I mean, how far do you see in terms of establishing a synagogue or other Jewish communal institutions there?
Well, of course, all of those communal institutions are in the planning stages. We will be eventually building a synagogue, a community center, a mikveh, a school, starting from early childhood programs. We will be developing the community from bottom up to really establish the foundational institutions of a community to service the local Jewish community, and of course all those that pass by. Eventually there will be kosher supermarkets, there will be more kosher restaurants than the ones that already exist, a full-fledged community with all the full-fledged institutions that will service that community, and also those Jews that come to visit either in business or just plain tourism.
Ibrahim, let me ask you, I mean, how confident does this now make you that a community like Bahrain that has been there for centuries, but of course is quite small in numbers, such a kind of development, this will help ensure the continuance of a community there in Bahrain, maybe even see it grow at a time when many other diaspora Jewish communities, frankly, are diminishing?
Absolutely. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised here. I've got to tell you that only very recently we came across the granddaughter of the rabbi who actually set up the synagogue here in Bahrain. His name was Shimon Cohen, and his granddaughter came over to Bahrain recently, and we looked through the history of it all, and we were very, very pleasantly surprised to get together with her. She's a part of the history of Bahrain. And though our numbers are small now, we really do believe that once the synagogue is up and running, that we will be conducting regular services in there. We will be seeing more people coming into Bahrain who will be of Jewish origin and will probably participate with us. It will allow the children to be able to learn a little bit about their religion. It'll allow us to not necessarily expand in a big way, but really to grow the community in a proper way.
Right. Briefly, Rabbi Abadi, let me ask you, outside of the UAE and Bahrain, are we likely to see a sort of permanent or a rabbinical presence in some of these other countries in this association?
I believe that eventually, as those countries will grow their Jewish population, they will definitely have a spiritual leader on location, and certainly I will be there for them until that moment, and I will probably help them obtain a rabbi, a spiritual leader that will work all with us all together to be able to to continue this beautiful association that we have.
All right. Well, gentlemen, what can I say? I wish you great success there in this new Gulf Association. I mean, needless to say, this is a conversation I couldn't even be imagining having with you until recent months. So this is a very exciting development for Jewish life, I would say, in the region, and I would even say globally as well, and historically. So I wish you Mazel Tov and Bahat. May you have the greatest of success. Thanks for joining us. Rabbi Dr. Eli Abadi and Ibrahim Nonu from Bahrain.
Thank you.